Today is Friday, September 10th, 2021, which means it's Derelict Friday. Hello, fiendlings, how the hell are ya? I sent off the back matter material to Severed earlier this week, which means they must be in the process of getting everything ready, including the paperback layout. Tick-tock, tick-tock. At some point soon, I'll get the proofs, and then I can share a sneak peek or two with you, and I might actually have a release date. Be ready, though. It could be as early as next weekend. While working on Station 3, I discovered the soundtrack for a game called The Ascent. I haven't played the game and don't really know much about it. However, the soundtrack would fit perfectly for a session of Shadowrun or while reading the collected early works of William Gibson. If you're looking for something that's palatable yet kind of futuristic and spacey while not grating on you, this might be for you. Give it a look-see. With that, I'm going to get out of here and get cracking on the rest of Friday's agenda. Be safe, have a great week, and we'll talk again real soon. Here's episode 40 of Derelict, Trident. Chapter 66. The battle was not going well. Black had little issue keeping track of every Marine in the two companies, every vehicle, and even ammo counts. That was simple. Firing at the creatures in the darkness was simple too. Unlike her sister ship, S&R Black was dead in the water until the spindle was connected. She couldn't take evasive action, she couldn't even help the Marines struggling to finish the connections without killing every single one of them and damaging herself in the process. The humans didn't have enough personnel or vehicles. In a few moments, the horde that had broken through the spire would be on top of her and Blue Company's Marines. She connected to the fledgling trio. "You have power. Do you have access to any countermeasure systems?"
"We require an order to..."
"Activate all countermeasure systems. Your crew is about to die." The trio responded at once.
"Countermeasures deployed. Drones inbound."
Black asked what they meant by drones. They sent her an image. If Black could have smiled, it would have been a toothy grin. Talby was already running low on ammo. Copenhagen had sprayed down countless numbers of starfish and pine cones, but they just kept coming. Worse, 2 squadrons of the blasted things kept harrying his flanks, making him put the SV through complex maneuvers to avoid being pulverized by the suicidal creatures. Great loops of their corrosive silver venom curled through space, several landing against the hull and setting off alerts. The craft could handle the acid for a time, but the starfish had figured out he was the main reason the horde was getting picked apart. Now they were doing their best to ram him en masse.
"Sir, we're going to run out of ammo,"
Copenhagen said, her voice tight. The SV danced through space, Talby still getting used to the gravitic controls. Copenhagen no doubt had difficulty targeting with the SV moving and jittering like an acrobat. She picked apart 2 of the suicidal starfish, but the third rammed the aft. A spray of alerts crossed his HUD. One of the port engines had been damaged, halving his speed. He cursed. "Prep for ejection," Talby said. "We're not there yet, but we're getting close."
"Aye, sir,"
Copenhagen said, her voice cold and calm. "We're going to head right into the horde," he said as he dodged another starfish. "Go right over them. You blast everything you can before we run out of room."
"Aye, sir,"
she said again in the same deadpan tone. Talby took a deep breath and dove right at the spire just as 3 starfish whipped through the space the SV had occupied. Hovering 10 meters above the spire, Talby pushed the SV to 1/8 speed, maybe fast enough to elude the squadrons gathering behind him. He rolled the SV so Copenhagen's turret had free fire along the spire. Flechettes and chaff fired from the turret, all of it aimed directly in front of the SV. Pine cones and starfish detonated into debris, geysers of silvery liquid spewing in all directions. Talby checked their 6 and saw 5 starfish closing. He kicked the speed up a little, hoping they could reach the end of the spire before he had to deal with them. The fledgling trio, their personalities barely established, had a perfect grasp of logic, yet their intuition and decision-making skills hadn't yet evolved enough for them to act on their own. They required an order from the commanding officer to do anything, apart from keeping the station's systems running. But when Black told them their crew was going to die, a protocol embedded in their sentient matrices bloomed. The power conduits of Trident Station, active but mostly unused, connected to an array of systems. The trio digested information about the new systems in less than a picosecond. The infant Portunes put together a tactical plan. Carenius and Janus objected to portions, adding their own suggestions, and another vote was taken. The sentients argued with one another for a full 2 milliseconds before agreeing on a course of action. Trident Station began tearing itself apart. Chapter 67. The amorphous shadow creatures were closing in. Dickerson was afraid that soon he'd actually be able to see them for what they were. The idea shook him on a level that went beyond mere biological fear. It held the threat of madness. He could no longer make out the QM Bay module clearly. The gathering shadows had bled their details away as though they were fading from reality. The rest of the station, the entire void-damned station, had disappeared into complete darkness. The spire stretched out into an abyss and disappeared. Corporal?
Yeah?
He cleared his throat. I'd like to take this moment to tell you what a privilege it's been to fight by your side. There was a pause, a long pause. Dickerson didn't watch his suit cams except for the one pointing straight at the rapidly disappearing QM bays. He wouldn't be able to see her face, know her expression, or even much of her body language. For fuck's sake, they were strapped to a void-damned shaft of Atmos steel in deep space with nowhere to go, nothing to fight with, and no fucking hope of escape. He blushed, his body tingling with it, and a sudden wave of self-disgust rolled over him. You got great timing, you idiot, he told himself. Now she's going to think,
Dickerson?
Yeah, boss?
When this is over, we're having a drink or 3. Until then, shut the fuck up.
It was enough to make him smile and for the adrenaline surge to retreat the slightest bit. You can face off with a void-damned starfish and the extinction of humanity, but you're afraid how she'd react to saying... The spire vibrated like a tuning fork before the entire structure shook. The shroud surrounding the QM bays was nearly complete, although Dickerson could still make out the occasional shape moving through the shadows. Soon, he whispered.
Soon?
Calimora asked.
How soon?
He shook his head. Don't know, but it's almost here, whatever it is. At first, he thought it was an optical illusion, but the darkness was coming toward them, erasing the spire a millimeter at a time. Corporal?
Yeah, Dickerson?
About that drink, you may have to owe me. She sighed long and loud.
Yeah, I think I might.
Multiple groups of starfish and pine cones flew a meter over their heads, heading into the dense darkness. Dickerson's rear cam view changed, his eyes immediately flicking to it. He saw lights. Well, maybe not lights, but a whole bunch of metal somethings, their surfaces glowing. He turned his head in reflex and watched the blobs of metal spread apart.
What the void now?
Calimora groaned. The shapes, looking so much like half-dead stars, flashed in unison. A single strobe of brightness that triggered his visor's filters. Starlight, Dickerson said.
What?
Calimora might have continued speaking, but the flash of another strobe cut her off. Now he could tell the shapes were orbs or spheres, their surfaces glowing as though warming up. Starlight, he said again. He turned his head to her. Oh, shit. Calimora peered over the edge and saw what he saw.
Doesn't that mean everything is going to be headed this way?
Dickerson cursed. If it wants a photon snack, yeah. We need to get out of here.
Wishing I hadn't cut off our radiation suits.
The orbs flashed again, and when the light cleared, the shroud had receded slightly, but now he saw more than just shapes in the darkness. He saw vast numbers of the creatures. They were coming in for their meal, and he and Calimora were in their way.
Get small, Dickerson,
Calimora said. She demagged one glove and put it against his back. She curled into him, the two of them facing one another, his damaged leg dangling in space.
About the best we can do.
He laughed, although it came out a croak. Best we can do, he echoed. A warning streamed across his visor. Solar flare! And it immediately turned black. A heartbeat later, his visor once again became transparent. Callimora's helmet touched his, but her suit and the space he could see around her rippled in waves as though she wasn't really quite there for a second. Or maybe strobing was a better word for it. Then everything settled and he felt reality come crashing down. Callimora was solid, as was the mooring clamp they clung to. Neptune's blue glow once again lit space and the shroud had been pierced. Dickerson turned his head to face the QM bays and saw dozens of lights. He grinned. "Well, I'll be damned," he said. Callimora unclamped from him once again so she too could see beyond the clamp. Some of those lights were moving, others were stationary. The stationary lights were ones even she seemed to recognize.
Running lights. Those are S&R ships,
Dickerson growled. "Boo yeah. That's gotta be Blue out there. Don't know where she came from and don't give a shit." His words trailed off as he saw more shadowy things approaching the two S&R ships. The creatures were reorganizing. Whatever the flare had done, it had obliterated one wave, but there were plenty more out there and all heading for the QM bay.
Our transponders are active,
Callimora said.
but they might not be able to pick up our radios. I'm going to shout out.
"Worth a try," Dickerson said. She tried multiple times across all the channels, but there was nothing. Dickerson tried the same, the pair thinking maybe her suit had been damaged, but there was no reply. Shadows swooped in on the QM bays and the barely visible S&R ship. From this distance, it was impossible to know which craft it was, but that part didn't matter. Whoever they were in big trouble. Chapter 68. The spire rumbled again. Dickerson, still somewhat bound to Callimora, felt less than safe. He also felt a little giddy. For as much terror as they'd been through, it was finally going to be over, one way or another. Flashes strobed inconsistently around the shape of the S&R ship, and he made out SV and skiff vehicles as well. The Marines were fighting their asses off, but he didn't think it would matter. 2 detonations pierced another portion of the shroud, this one seemingly far away. In the shadow of the flash, he made out nebulas of debris spreading outward. The S&R ships were firing long-range missiles. Good. At least they knew those big bastards were coming. The spire shook again, but this time was different. Through the Atmos steel, his glove sensors picked up a ratcheting sound that then multiplied until it was nearly indiscernible from static. Whatever it was, he was fairly sure it was more than one creature. Maybe thousands of them moving through the spire, and at great speed. He frowned. That didn't seem right. Even while on Mira, the starfish chose to hover and fly in the near ZG rather than using their arms for locomotion. So what was coming through the spire like a horde of rats dancing across its surface?
You feel it too?
Callimora asked. Dickerson nodded. "Oh yeah, I feel it." His HUD flashed an alert and he blinked at it twice before saying, "Well, guess we're about to find out what it is." The alert simply said, "Hold on." S&R Black bucked as the starfish slammed into its hull. The bastards weren't even bothering to try and target her with their acid or try and pry her plates apart. They'd apparently decided suicide attacks were the way to go.
Hull integrity at 80%,
Black said. S&R Black shook again. Carbonaro's turret was nearly out of ammunition. Talby, too. They were going to lose. What about Blue?
Blue is accelerating. They will not reach the edge of the shroud before I am destroyed.
Black's voice had a different tone to it, almost as if she were close to rage.
I am sorry, Captain. I did my best.
I know you did, Dunn said. Another starfish ripped through Carbonaro's Marines. A young private clutched off into space, wrapped in the creature's arms. He heard Carbonaro yelling over the comms, desperately trying to rally her diminishing team.
Can't get the fucking thing to move,
one of the Marines shouted. A halo of flak exploded around him, destroying another flock of incoming starfish. S&R Black, halfway into the spindle, could disengage, flee the QM bays and leave the remaining Marines to die. But if Dunn ordered that course of action, he was certain they would all die anyway.
Bingo ammo!
Carbonaro screamed. She popped up from the turret with her rifle ready and snap-fired at anything that came near her team. Dunn watched her empty the mag, before slamming home another. It didn't matter. There weren't enough Marines. There weren't enough S&R. His brows furrowed. Red was supposed to be here, he said, his voice sounding like a lost child. Black didn't ask him what he was talking about, but he thought she knew what he meant anyway. There wasn't much additional context needed. Red could have hooked into the QM bay modules below them, assisted in the tow. With both S&R ships, they would have been able to move the bays as easily as Blue had done with the hangar bays. The trio had planned for all the S&R ships to survive and participate in this. What had happened? An alert flashed on his HUD. Hold on. He had time to open his mouth and ask Black about the warning, but his voice died in his throat. The spire was shredding itself apart, its atmosteel plates unzipping. Thousands of small shapes, each twice the size of a gridiron football, came spilling through the seams. The new arrivals headed directly for S&R Black.
Fuck us!
Carbonaro said over the squad channel.
We're done!
3 meters from Carbonaro, the nearest oblong sphere blossomed into thick arms with multiple attachments. She snap-aimed and pulled the trigger, but she had no ammo. The robotic creature, looking more like an insect than something human-engineered, swept to the mooring point. Another joined it, literally pushing away the 3 remaining Marines. "Get out of there," Dunn yelled at Carbonaro. "I think they're friendlies."
Copy, sir. Squad, to me!
She shouted. Dunn's eyes were locked on the sight of dozens of the oblong things opening as they approached, shifting and coalescing to provide a metal shield over the skiff. The remaining Marines climbed aboard the skiff while Starfish swooped in to snatch the humans. A wave of creatures smashed into the makeshift umbrella of robots. The space around the robots rippled, just like Space had after he'd fired his gravitic rifle. Now he understood.
We are green, sir,
Oak's voice said over the command channel. S&R Black thumped, the vibration rising up through his boots. "Marines, cover Black as best you can. Get clear," Dunn said. A rain of eyes rattled over the channel.
Eric?
LeBlanc said over private comms. "Lucy?"
Get moving now. The door is closing.
He flicked his eyes to the cam feed covering the shipyards and saw what she meant. The great tunnel the light had blasted through the shroud was beginning to darken, the stars beyond slowly fading to black. The skiff had no armaments left. Her Marines' rifles, including her own, were empty and her squad was down to 2 Marines. The metal insects were still breaking through the steel clamp, cutting and biting into the Atmos steel to free the QM bays, but that didn't mean the exosolar creatures had stopped their assault. Her skiff was less than 10 meters from Black when she screamed out over the comms, "Support! Need help!" A starfish, its arms easily 2 meters long, rammed the skiff's port side. The blow sent the skiff spinning before another creature crashed into it, sending it tumbling the other way and right into the path of something that had a series of spines stretching from its back. The skiff, still caught in its tumble, hit the creature, her remaining Marines instantly skewered. Carb screamed in horror as a crimson cloud of bloody droplets filled the space around her, before the skiff tumbled off the creature's back, leaving parts of her squad's bodies in its wake. Bile rose up her throat as the spin and tumble got the better of her cast-iron stomach. She had time to think, "This is worse than training," before a group of smaller starfish attacked. Instead of ramming the skiff, the smaller creatures attached themselves and scurried across the hull with uncanny speed. As long as she stayed in the turret, she was surrounded by a shell of Atmos steel, but a constant assault was going to tear the skiff apart. Her mag rifle was empty. Her sidearm was empty. Carb reached into her pouch and pulled her grenade from it. When she'd rearmed before climbing into a skiff to support Black, they'd shoved things at her and she pocketed them without paying attention to what they were. The moment her fingers clutched the orb, her HUD lit up. "Gravitic grenade." She quickly scanned the description and found what she was looking for. "Safe distance 5 meters? Fuck," Carb said. A shimmering silver knife cut through the turret's port side. Another appeared in front of her. The creatures had her, and it was only a matter of seconds before they tore her from the turret, screaming. 5 meters? Does that include a layer of Atmo? She didn't know. A talon pierced the turret and pried at the vulnerable spot. The Atmo steel peeled. "Hope you made it, Dickerson," she said, and armed the grenade. When the Atmo plate gave way, her tumbling, spinning view of space showed her a dense cloud of darkness and shapes screaming through it at a frightening speed. The next turret plate peeled back, and the starfish's arm reached for her. She waited until she could see its center, its maw dripping silvery liquid as it pulled back to spray her. "Hi!" Carb yelled, and activated the grenade. A blast of translucent light spread out in a 10-meter sphere from the turret, annihilating the exosolar creatures within its radius. The creatures that had pried loose her turret disappeared in a cloud of silver liquid. Carb's corpse dissolved almost instantly. In the distance, Dunn saw blue, her engine plumes scarring space in the darkness. The starfish weren't chasing her. They were all headed for the QM bay, and Black.
"Hold on, sir,"
Oak said. S&R Black came to life, her primary engines jetting twice to help give her momentum. The engine wash incinerated a pinecone swarm heading in. The primary engines fired again, a 3-second burn. G-forces hit Dunn like a hammer, pushing him against the bulkhead.
"Long burn, sir,"
Oak said.
"This one's going to hurt."
Oaks hadn't been kidding. The 10-second burn made his bones feel as though they were being pressed upon by an elephant. Blobs of darkness flickered across his vision, early signs of G-sickness. Great. S&R Black shuddered, but this time the vibrations didn't subside. Something impacted the hull, and another alert pinged his HUD. Hull integrity at 70%. "Black, what the void was that?"
"Port,"
was all Black said. He brought up the port feed, and his jaw dropped open. A creature roughly the size of S&R Black was below the QM modules, star-like fish appendages wrapped around the third one.
"Have to turn into it, Captain,"
Oak said. S&R Black's thrusters seemed to be firing all at once, the ship jerking and bucking.
"We're going to lose the spindle."
Oaks yelled. Oaks was right. The creature was literally pulling both Black and the modules toward it. If the ship didn't kill her engines, their cargo would rip from the hull, probably destroying Black in the process. "Need some help," Dunn yelled over the command channel. A dazzling stream of diamonds flowed through space as if sprayed through a hose. The gravitic pulses splashed against the creature's exposed back. The massive thing immediately let go of the QM bay modules and began to turn.
"Go, go, go!"
Noble yelled over the comms. On the starboard cam feed, he saw the flickering shape of what used to be the medical bays moving through space like an SV. The creature shot back a stream of silver liquid, but Noble's craft was long gone, already moving to port and firing another salvo of those weapons. The massive creature couldn't move in time to escape all the projectiles, the diamonds bursting on its shell like corrosive paint, semi-transparent waves rippling off its surface and the surrounding space. Noble was moving the craft again. Several starfish swarms had taken up position surrounding his ship, keeping pace with it and following its every move. They were creating a noose.
"Captain, Black said you need a push."
Noble said over the comms.
"It's now or never."
"Do it." One of the skiffs flew by, marine rifles firing into the pine cones of starfish heading for the new threat. A few of the newly arrived creatures swerved off to attack the skiff, but the horde continued heading for Noble's new toy.
"Oaks,
Noble said.
get ready for a full burn. Hang on tight."
The medbay ship was coming in faster than Dunn thought possible. The acceleration nearly instantaneous, the ship seeming to blip from over 2 kilometers away to less than 20 meters behind Black. "How?" Dunn said, slack-jawed. Ripples of reality danced in the space between Black and Noble's ship. Black shook and vibrated before the rattle and vibration slowed into a steady rhythm. Black was on the move.